Well, pending free trade deals, massive deficit and entitlement cuts, and sky-high unemployment in this country, a perfect storm facing labor unions across this country. How is organized labor coping? Let's bring in a man who knows a lot about that, Richard Trumka, the president of the AFL-CIO. Thank you for being here, sir. Appreciate it.
Poppy, thanks for having me on.
You know, there are those that will say, and you've heard them loud and clear, that unions, as we knew them when they formed in this country, formed under very different circumstances, without a lot of the employee protections that we now have, that there's not a need for the classic union, if you will. Are unions dying in this country, and is there the need for them that there once was?
Well, I could tell you, the polls show that there's more interest in unions now than ever before because they know two things. They know that corporate America is stronger and bigger than it's ever been, and they need a balance to that. They need us to speak for them. And let's take the Verizon instance right now. Verizon made $6 billion in after-tax profits last year. Their top 5 executives took home $258 million over a 4-year period, and they're asking for concessions from those workers of $20,000 per family right now. And without a union, they would have imposed that and taken $20,000 out of each worker, which would have destroyed demand and made it less likely that we'd be able to create jobs in the future.
But what Verizon points to in this debate, that those workers do not contribute to their health care plan. So what do you say in response to that? Because you're going to hear this bickering back and forth.
Well, first of all, it's a smokescreen. When Verizon walked away from the table, they had over 100 concessions on the table. They were taking away people's sick days. They were taking away their health care. They were taking away their vacation days. They were going to impose $20,000 in cuts on each working family out there. Now think about that. You take that out of the demand. Those 45,000 workers can't buy, they can't purchase, they can't create demand, and they can't spur the economy. It's a smokescreen for the war on workers that we're seeing. This is an unprecedented war that is about trying to take away everything that would-be or middle-class workers have and trying to strip them of it so that you can give that to the people at the top. Those 5 executives taking home $258 million over 4 years, maybe they should be in the pot too.
Your federation has been fighting against pending free trade agreements, specifically in South Korea, Colombia, and Panama. Is that because you believe that those agreements will hurt the U.S. economy?
Well, there's no question about that. The U.S. government itself says that the South Korean trade agreement will cost us 159,000 jobs, and the Colombian free trade agreement will cost us another 45,000 jobs. That's something that we don't need at a time with 14 million people plus unemployed.
Do you really feel like you could turn the corner with these pending free trade plans, or at this point are you just trying to make the point, but you believe that these will go through?
No, we're going to do everything we can to defeat them because they're bad for the American public. They're bad for our economy. And here's the irony of all of this. Over 70% of the American people believe that the trade agreements we've been signing are bad for the country, yet we continue to sign them. If you look at the Korean trade agreement, they signed an agreement that considers domestic content to be 35%. So South Korea can make a car that has 35% of its content in it, and 65% could come from China or North Korea or anybody else, and it could flow through into the United States under this free trade agreement. It's going to cost us a lot of jobs, and we shouldn't be doing that at a time when you have 14 million people unemployed and 25 million people underemployed.
Make the case to a business leader who's looking at his or her bottom line now that unions are not only necessary in your mind but good for business, and the case that unions are good for the American public and the American worker in this economic time.
Here's the economic argument. Our economy is 72% driven by consumer spending. Unless people have in their pocket money, they can't create that demand. We know that we can't have a low-wage, high-consumption society. We have to have a high-wage, high-consumption society. The best way to do that, the best way to make decisions is to have a union. And when unions come together and work cooperatively with their employers, we can beat the competition because we've done it. They do it in Germany, they do it in Scandinavia, they do it in Japan, they do it in a number of other countries by paying high wages and benefits and working together to defeat the competition, not making war on their workers like they are in Verizon and a couple of other companies are trying to do right now.
Richard Trumka, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.